time for round 6 of season 12 of the Apex Online GT3 Championship in ACC. This is tier 8, the penultimate round. Only one more round after this one. This round taking place at Suzuka, but before we have a look at how this round panned out, let's have a look at the Drivers' Championship coming away from Barcelona. Mishik Cheat for visually impaired racing. He is now heading the top of the Drivers' Championship. He's got 365 points, only 11 points clear of Rudy Gies, who's in second place, and only a further 5 points behind Rudy is Cav Bud of Rev Sport International. Oscar Motin is in 4th place, and then there's quite a gap between the first 4 to Manuel Duque of Gently Bentley in the Lexus. He's got 230 points, so he's 101 points behind Oscar Motin. So really, I think Manuel Duque for Gently Bentley is dropping away from contact with those leading 4 drivers. I think the championship will be between those. In 6th place, it's Steve Banks with 224 points. Then there's a further drop of 57 points to Tom Griffith, who's in 7th. Stefan Blay from Urban Led Racing, who took victory last time out of Barcelona and leapt up the Drivers' Championship. He's in 8th place. George Darras is in 9th, and Tudor Mihai rounds out the top 10 with 141 points. Looking at the Teams Championship, visually impaired racing now head the table with 428 points. Rev Sport International, Cav Bud and Cameron Gold, they slip back to second, coming away from Spain. Gently Bentley in the Lexus, Manuel Duque and Paul Martin are in 3rd. Urban Led Racing moved ahead of Beeswax Racing on the previous round. Stefan Blair and Nico Urbantat are now in 4th. And Beeswax Racing, myself, Steve Bezic and Lord Nem, we slip down to 5th. Riders on the Storm round out the Teams Championship in 6th place. Daniel Vallis and Steelco need to get some more points on the board to be able to move up the table. So that's the position that we arrive into Suzuka. This will be an evening race. No bad weather is predicted, but it'll be an hour long with a mandatory pit stop at some point during the race to change tyres. Let's see how this one turned out. So you join us for round 6 of the Apex Online racing season for season 12. This is the penultimate round. Suzuka this week, 1 hour race with a mandatory pit stop. Mihai qualified on pole. And Mashid Chief, visually impaired racing, qualified in 2nd place, goes into this race leading the championship. Lord Nem from Beeswax Racing qualified on 3rd, and Kozierski qualified in 5th. Motin, who's doing quite well in the Drivers' Championship, he qualified in 5th. And the green light is on, and they're away. Mihai trying to lead them down into the first corner, but the BMW there of Misic for visually impaired racing dives through into the lead. Trying to fend off the Mercedes there of Kozierski was Mihai. And they're around the first couple of corners. The BMW away quickly there from the start of the race. Maybe Mihai was caught a little bit unawares. Seems to be some gaps opening up at the back of the field, so something must have happened in the first corner at the back end of the race. Through towards Degner 1 and 2 for the first time. The BMW leading out from Mihai. Lord Nem showing 3rd on the computer, but I'm not sure the Mercedes of Kozierski did get past Lord Nem, who slipped backwards, I think. There's an Aston Martin there. And Lord Nem looks to have slipped from 3rd to 6th in the first few corners. Round the hairpin for the first time. So a lot of changing of position in this first lap. And towards Spoon. Proving to be a difficult corner in this race. The track seemed quite slippy compared to other sessions. Very difficult to get around Spoon and get some good speed away. But the BMW of Mihai is through. Apologies, Mashid cleanly through. Mihai in 2nd place, behind him in the Aston Martin. Kozierski isn't a name that's featured much in these races so far this season, but he's in 3rd place. Through 130R and up towards the chicane to end the first lap. And Mihai coming up on the BMW quite strong there at the end of the lap, trying to get back and reclaim that first position. And there's a small gap to Kozierski in 3rd, who's just a 2nd behind Motin. And then Bud, and then Lord Nem is in 6th place. Not the greatest start then to slip backwards. Urban Tat for Urban Led Racing is in 7th. Tom Griffiths in the BMW in 8th. Mashij for visually impaired racing. Currently leading the Drivers' Championship going into this round and making a good start on this race to possibly make a very good claim for the overall championship with only one more race to go. Other rivals for the championship, Motin is in there. Gies is in 10th place in his Aston Martin. And I'm looking for him. Cav Bud is there in 5th place. So Cav here in the Honda. Just going through our shot then as they go underneath the bridge out of Degner 2. He's in 5th place. He was leading the championship prior to Barcelona, but didn't have a great race and has dropped down the table a little bit, but still in with a shout. Through the hairpin they go again. The field getting a little bit strung out. The gap's not too big yet, so everything to race for. Gies was shown on the computer as just being right behind El Magdoub. 111 McLaren just in front of him. Is he going to make a look and is going to 130R? Dangerous place to make a pass. I'm not sure he's close enough. And through 130R towards the chicane. Oh, big slide in the background there. Was that Carson? I think it was Carson. Recovering. Massive slide out of 130R. He's got the Lexus of one of the Gently Bentleys alongside him and he's had to jump across the chicane. I'm not sure about that manoeuvre. Hard to see from their angle. But they went in side by side and he came out the Lexus way behind Carson in the Ferrari. Carson's second race in Apex Online Racing. Has a look up the inside of the Ferrari Schmijak. Not going to happen this time round. He's still trying to find a way past El Magdoub. Carson pretty agitated then, trying to recover from that massive slide through 130R. Must have certainly woke him up. She's chief of visually impaired racing is still out front. Mihai just half a second behind him. Carson all over the back of Schmijak, trying to recover that position. And it's Schmijak, Carson, Paul Martin, Steve Banks in the yellow McLaren there, just to the back of these four. Then it's the other Gently Bentley of Duque, and behind that is the Audi of Steve Bezic, myself for Beeswax Racing. All coming together for these drivers early on. They're only into the third lap. Carson made that huge slide through 130. I was very lucky to gather it up, really. Go through Spoon and down the main back straight. So Carson makes it through 130R in one piece this time. His tyres certainly won't affect him for that massive slide. He's through okay, but the Lexus behind of Paul Martin went a bit wide there. Wasn't enough for Steve Banks to get through. Out of the chicane. Martin will be really trying to get on the back of Carson up ahead. Get a bit of a tow. There's a bit too much of a gap there for him. Through turn 1 and into the S's. A lot of damage on the side of the Lexus there as well. And in the walls already for the Gently Bentley team. Krzyzewski. Mihai may have made a mistake at some point because the gap to Mashij really opened up there, and Krzyzewski right on the back of the Aston Martin now, looking to take second place. We're only a few laps in. There's a look of the inside on the hairpin. Meanwhile behind, I think I thought for a moment there Geese had got past El Magdoub, and that's not the case. The gap now from Mishij for visually impaired racing to Mihai is 2 seconds. So the Audi Aston Martin must have made a small mistake somewhere for that gap to suddenly open up. He's going to be looking in his rear mirrors now as they come out of Spoon up towards 130R. Will the Mercedes get a run on the Aston Martin? Mihai looks to have gone defensive there. He looked a little bit over to the left. Not as they go through 130. The Mercedes too far back. He's carrying a lot of speed there through towards the chicane, really closing up on the Aston Martin. Motin also having a look in the background. If he can get a good exit from this final corner, there's always a chance of an attack into turn 1. It's one of the better passing places at Suzuka. And Mihai goes defensive, takes the inside line to try and protect. Going through turn 1. That will cost him speed though, so will it open him up to an attack through the S's? Zerski trying to keep one eye forward on Mihai, looking for an opportunity, and another eye behind him at Motin, who's right in his mirrors now. Towards Degner 1, and Motin's having a look at the Mercedes. Going to get alongside, is he? He doesn't look quite close enough. Very high speed, Degner 1 and 2. That distraction has allowed Mihai to open up the gap of over a second now, just. Zerski perhaps had his chance to attack Mihai and it slipped away from him now. Motin's right on his tail. Cav Bud in the Honda in the background, trying to come back, trying to recover his championship drive. Following a slightly disappointing Barcelona where he had a mishap on lap 2 in the final. Going up towards the final chicane on the lap and ended up stuck on the grass near the wall and had to wait for the whole field to come through. Finished Barcelona in 12th place. That cost him his lead in the championship. So Cav could really do with a good result here with only one more race left after this one. Mishij for visually impaired racing out front now has a comfortable 2.6 second lead over Mihai. And the Mercedes from Kozerski looks to have shaken off Motin a little bit and is starting to close back in again on Mihai. Tight battle at the front. I think there's some movement elsewhere in the field. Paul Martin now showing behind Beeswax Racing. So he was in front of Steve Banks, slipped back 4 places. Steve Carson has slowly pulled away from the rest of the field, but Schmijak in the other Ferrari has managed to keep his distance and increase the gap a little bit. Rudy Geese still stuck to the back of the McLaren, the gap showing there as 0.2. Go through the S's and approaching Degner 1. Degner 1 and 2, very high speed. Usually not easy to make a pass through Degner 1 and 2. Not unless your opponent makes a really big mistake. Going up towards the hairpin. Which means I look to go a little deep then in that exit. And Degner 2 underneath the bridge. See in the background, Carson right on the back of the Ferrari now, following that small slip that I just saw in the background. Is he going to have enough speed to catch him going into Spoon? Action up and down the whole field, really. Motin is right on the tail of Kozerski. Kozerski trying to get in the back of Mihai. Meanwhile, not far behind this battle, 6th and 7th. Lord Nem is trying to keep Tom Griffiths behind him as they go into the chicane. Rudy Geese still stuck to the back of the McLaren of El Magdoub. Still can't get a good enough drive from the Aston Martin to try and have a go into turn 1. He's had a little look, but he looked way too far behind as they come down the start-finish straight. Into turn 1. He's really got an overspeed there, but there's just no way through on turn 1. Very easy to block somebody off if you go through turn 1 and into the S's. And right behind these, we've seen Carson on the back of Schmijak now for a few laps. Oh, Duque's gone as well, so Gently Bentley driver Paul Martin is behind the Audi of myself for Beeswax Racing. But, Duque down in 24th place and in the pit, so I don't know what's happened there because we're still only 6-7 laps into the race and Duque already in the pits. No, not a great race for Gently Bentley. I think the points difference between Beeswax Racing and Gently Bentley is far too big for us to be able to close in this one race. I think the focus for Beeswax Racing on this one is to try and get back ahead of Urban Led Racing. So Urban Tat is in 8th. But Stefan Blay, the other Urban Led Racing driver, is right down the back of the field in the Porsche. And I do recall, I think from free practice, and looking back at some of the action in the race, he was having quite a difficult time at Suzuka, was Blay. Not an enjoyable race from it at all, so he's right at the back of the field. So it's looking good for Beeswax Racing to get back past them in the team's championship. That'll only be to get them to 4th place. Lord catching up on Cav Budd in the Honda. Gap now to Griffiths behind him is a second. So it's oscillating a little bit for Lord Nem as he moves back and forth. Geese still stuck on the back of the McLaren. Lord Nem not close enough to attack Cav. And the gaps at the front seem to be opening up a little bit again. Meshik Chi just went through our shot there in the BMW, going through the S's. His lead now nearly up to 3 seconds for visually impaired racing. Mihai in the Aston Martin has managed to get that gap now on Kozierski up to a second again. So there's a little bit of breathing space there on the Mercedes. And same really. Motin's trying to come back, but the gap showing on the computer is 1 second. Oh, big mistake there. We just saw a big mistake from Kozierski coming out of Degner 2. Got a big slide, did recover it, but Motin now right on the back of the Mercedes as they come through the hairpin, but I'm not sure he's going to find a way through before Kozierski's able to recover. I think he's managed to get away with that one. And that will really help Mihai open that gap now to 1.8 seconds. Not sure the Aston Martin's got the acceleration out of Spoon to be able to get past anybody. I always found the Aston Martin quite slow to accelerate when I used it. I'm not sure it's a bit of a disadvantage here at Suzuka. So Motin still stuck behind Kozierski in 3rd place. 5th place it's Cav Budd, who's got Lord Nem breathing down his neck as they come into the chicane. Out of the last corner onto the start-finish straight. Not sure the Lexus either has got enough to try and get past the Honda. He's having a little bit of a look, I think. Trying to get closer. Into the first corner. The Honda's far too far ahead of a Lexus for him to have a go. Tom Griffiths hovering in the background. The Lexus is really all over the Honda as they go through the S's. Slightly different line. That's the best way to have a go at somebody, is to take a slightly different line through a corner, try and get out of it faster than they can, and try and make an attack before the next corner comes up. They approach Degner 1 now. And Honda's got enough of a lead. Unless he makes a mistake. It's quite easy on Degner 1 and 2 to go a bit too far wide and end up catching the gravel. And we've seen a few drivers sliding as they go underneath the bridge there, but not for Cav Bud. A little bit of a wiggle there as he came off the curb coming up towards the hairpin. Lexus again trying to have a look, but the Honda accelerates well out of the hairpin. Heads up towards Spoon. Motin up ahead, trying to get onto the back of the Mercedes again as they come out of Spoon. I don't think he's close enough to have a go. The chicane again to end the lap. Lord them through 130R, really close to the back of the Honda. Can he get through the chicane fast enough to have a good go at the Honda going into turn 1? Long Griffey is struggling, I think, to keep on the back of these two. He keeps closing in, and then the gap keeps opening up a little bit again. The Urban Tat in the background there. With Rudy Geese behind him. It looks like Rudy Geese finally got past... Is it Schmijak he wasn't behind him? It wasn't Schmijak, was it? Geese into 9th anyway. Steve Banks trying to close into the back of Carson. Gap now between Banks and 12th and myself. Steve Bezic for Beeswax Racing opened up to 4.6 seconds nearly, so a nice healthy gap there. I think I was getting distracted by every time I got rid of one car that was chasing me, it was replaced by another. At the moment it's Paul Martin trying to get onto my tail. As we go through Degner 1 and Degner 2. It looks like I got a good drive through Degner 1 and 2 there, a good exit, or a dust there in front of us. So I can see Banks and Carson, as Carson had another slip and dropped back one place. I think he has, because now he's behind Banks, so Carson's having a bit of a difficult race. He just went off track then, with a lot of dust in the air. Because he was behind Schmijak for the longest time trying to get through, but now he's giving himself even more of a task. Now that Banks is through. A little bit wide there coming out of the exit of Spoon. And the computer showing a gap there of 0.3 of a second between Beeswax Racing Audi and the Gently Bentley Lexus, but it looks a lot more than that as we go through 130R. Indeed, it's showing 1.5 seconds nearly, so massive gap opened up there. I think I suddenly got a bit of a wiggle on. And for once got one or two good exits that allowed me to pull away a little, and if I can break the elastic, try and move away from the Gently Bentley Lexus. Rejoin the leaders though, about the same time. Coming up to 130R, Mashij for Visually Impaired Racing now has a lead of 2.5 seconds, so Mihai is starting to pull that gap back a little bit. Still Kozerski in 3rd place, Motin in 4th, Cav Bud in that Honda trying to get back into the championship in 5th place. He'll need to do more than that though, I think. He needs to get to the lead of the race to really give himself a chance. Lord Nem hanging on to the back of Cav Bud, and Tom Griffith still hanging around in the background. Gap starting to drop a little between Mashij and Mihai. Through turn 1, up towards the S's. Oh, you just lost the rear end there. What happened then to Mashij? The rear end swung out of him and went onto the grass. Mihai swept through to take the lead of the race. And maybe a loss of concentration for a moment, as crew chief likes to say, but wherever the cause, Mashij went off the track onto the grass. Mihai swept through to take the lead, and now, well, Mashij's lead was good enough that Kozierski's still a little bit away behind. But to distract Kozierski, Motin's right on his tail again. Gap just 0.1 of a second. So I don't know if track conditions are changing. It was set at dusk, this race. So the track was cooling as the race went along. So a complete reversal at the front of the race. Mihai now leading by 2 seconds over Mashij. He seems to have recovered pretty well from that slip. The gap to Kozierski behind him is 1.3 seconds. So we'll need to kind of focus and close back up on the Aston Martin. But he stole that lead at the start of the race when the flag dropped and they were away. And I don't know if Mihai will let him get back through again. Kozierski sniffs an opportunity. He's trying to get on the back of the visually impaired racing driver's tail. Motin trying to stay with the Mercedes. In the background, Lord Nem coming under some pressure now from Tom Griffith. Is he going to have a look down into turn 1? He has a little look, but he's not close enough. Through they sweep into the S's. I don't think Tom's going to find a way through now. Beeswax Racing under some pressure in 6th place, but back down in 13th. Looks okay for me at the moment. Gap behind Paul Martin, 1.6. It's now Carson in front of me. 2.8 seconds. Carson not really able to keep contact with Banks from the looks of things. The gap between Carson and Banks, 0.9 of a second, which at this level is okay for a gap, really. And now it's 1.1 seconds, so yeah. A big slide there for the Ferraris. He went through Degner too. I'm not sure if that's the quickest way through. Coming up towards the hairpin. Banks, Carson pushing really hard to try and catch up with the McLaren. Maybe Banks made a bit of a mistake. The gap between Banks and Schmizak is 2.6 seconds. Through Spoon. Ferrari not using all the curbs there, but the Ferrari usually doesn't react well to curbs. Probably a wise decision. Down the back straight, trying to close back up on the McLaren. Through 130R. Up towards the chicane. It looks to be closing in on the McLaren a little bit as they go through this part of the lap. But it's the all important exit from this corner. And Carson far too far back to make any sort of attack onto the McLaren up ahead of him. Meanwhile, Lord Nem appears to have shaken off Griffiths. Is he in the pits? Indeed he is. So it's approaching that part of the race now where people will start to make pit stops. Feels a bit early though. We're only 12 laps in. 11 laps completed. So maybe a tactical decision. Maybe Griffiths trying to make an undercut on Lord Nem. Whichever way that works out, Mihai leads the race. His lead now over Mashij is 2.5 seconds. Comes through the hairpin. Mashij just off camera, right behind him. The gap between Mashij and Kozierski is 2 seconds, so Mashij has really put his foot down since that slip onto the grass and has opened the gap up again to the Mercedes in 3rd place. Motin, well, that gap looks more than 0.2 of a second now, but he's been stuck behind that Mercedes for all the duration of his race so far. Every time we cut to him, he's just hovering just a car length or 2 behind. Lord Nem now released from the pressure of Griffith behind him, still trying to find a way past the Honda as well. Look to me like Cav Bud's taking a slightly defensive line there as they come up to 130R. Lord Nem has a little look, but brave indeed to try and make a move and 130R to make a pass. Unless you're Fernando Alonso on the outside. Through the chicane. And I don't know if that Lexus is ever going to get a better exit than the Honda down the start finish. Oh, he's into the pits. I think Lord Nem nearly followed him, but this might be Lord Nem's biggest opportunity now. If he can get a couple of good laps in and do an overcut on the Honda, it might give him his best chance to get through on the Honda and make that place up and get himself up into 4th or 5th net. Urban tap behind him. A lot of cars going into the pits now. Moten in the pits. Bud in the pits. Schmijak stays out. Mihai still leading the race. Cheer for visually impaired racing, just 2.3 seconds behind him. Krzyzewski nearly 2 seconds behind the BMW. Lord Nem for Beeswax Racing is in 4th place now as drivers start to pull in for their mandatory pit stop. Dino 1 and 2, nice and neat underneath the bridge towards the hairpin. Meanwhile, Beeswax Racing is starting to close in on Carson. Gap now only 1 second. And that's Schmijak just ahead as well. So where's Banks got to? Has Banks got through in Schmijak? It certainly looks that way. So maybe Schmijak made a mistake. Banks is away. So Carson will be ever so pleased, I think, to see the back of the Ferrari again. He was stuck behind him for quite some time earlier on in the race, and now he's about to see the back of the same car again. Beeswax Racing closing in on the back of Carson. As they come out of Spoon and down the back straight again. Both the gently Bentley Lexuses now right at the back of the field, really. Martin down in 21st, Duque down in 22nd, so it's looking good for Gently Bentley going into this round. Or it's looking pretty bad for them at the moment, certainly on the team's front. They're getting end up with poor haul of points. Duque was 5th in the Drivers' Championship coming into this round, but he's going to lose a lot of points if he ends up finishing this far down the field. Steelcoat trying to have a look at the back of Darras. Darras nips into the pits just as we cut to them. And Mishij into the pits. Mihai still out on track, as is Krzyzewski. Lord Nem as well. Big gaps out front, but the pit stops strategy and who goes in when is going to really play out now to probably settle who's going to finish where in this race. Mishij on his way out. No penalties. Quite a few drivers now being caught out in ACC by the speeding in the pit lanes. If you come in really hot, you will get an instant disqualification. There's no appeals for that, obviously. And if you overspeed by the smallest amount on the pit lane lines, you'll get a stop-go 30, and that's a real race-over situation for you. That's what got me in Silverstone in the first round of this season. And pretty much ended my first race. I finished way down the field. So it's really not worth even trying to get as small an advantage from trying to get into the pits as quickly as you can, because if it goes wrong, your race is totally over. Coming up towards 130R. Getting closer and closer to the back of Carson now is myself. Really wide there for the Ferrari. I'm not sure that's the fastest way. You lose a bit of traction going that far wide, but through the chicane. Oh, last minute change. What I was going to do the opposite of what Carson did. and he nipped into the pits at the last second. I was about to go in, so I stayed out. Cost me a little bit of time because I was starting to slow down for the pit entry. But this was my effort to do an overcut on Carson. I was concerned about getting past, so I stayed out. Carson, meanwhile, into his pits for his mandatory tyre change and pit stop. Scooby-Doo, not been mentioned this race. I think didn't qualify too well, and I think there was a big incident at the back of the field into the first corner which we didn't quite catch. I think that pretty much put him out of contention, but he's going long again. Scooby-Doo's favourite tactic is to go long in a race and move upfield and then try and hold on to those positions when everybody comes back out on track. Now the leader of the race, Rudy Geese, as everybody starts to pit in. Rudy second in the Drivers' Championship coming into this round. Had a couple of victories, first round and the third round, but has been reasonably quiet since then, not been showing too much in the races. Steve Banks is now third, Schmijak fourth, and I'm up to the heady heights of fourth for Beeswax Racing. My ears are going to pop. And we're into the S's, so I've not pitted. Still trying to get that overcut to work on Carson. Carson now a rejoin and showing in 16th place. She didn't manage to get past Mihai in the pit, still behind him. The gap's a lot lower now, just 0.7. But is he going to be able to find a way past? He's certainly closed up, and he's a lot closer now than he was previously. But this is my key pit stop. Am I going to be able to get out ahead of Carson? Schmijak just ahead of me. Being nice and safe going into the over the pit line. Where is Carson? He's going through the S's, is it? There's Degner 1 and 2. Tell from this angle. It is indeed. Going on to the back, he's just been through Spoon. He's on the back straight. Meanwhile, come on crew, hurry up with that tyre change. Carson into 130R. Coming up towards the chicane. And my crew are still messing around with the tyres. He's coming, come on. Carson into the chicane and onto the start-finish straight. I'm just pulling away. Am I going to be able to get out of the pits in time? He's just passing the start-finish line for Carson. And I'm away. I've got ahead of Schmijak in the pits, so that's key. Just getting up to acceleration. And there comes Carson into turn 1. So I think I've managed to jump both Schmijak and Carson, who's really trying to get past me there as we start to accelerate away. I'll have cold tyres. Carson's tyres will be up to speed. Steelco gets the dreaded stop-go 30 meanwhile. But Carson tries to find a way through, and the S's coming through the final part of the S's, up to the left-hander, up towards Degner 1 and 2. There might be a chance on the hairpin for Carson if he can keep close enough. And there's usually no way through Degner 1 and 2. The Audi manages to get round, and Carson looked really tentative there going through Degner 2. The Audi managed to make it through safely with its colder tyres into the hairpin. And I think if Carson's not got past now, he's going to find it really, really difficult to find a way through. The tyres will be coming up to temperature. And you really only need to get through Spoon and down the back straight, and it'll be evens for who can get ahead. Look at that gap there that Carson's let open up coming away from the hairpin. Well, it's got good acceleration in the Audi through Spoon. And this is perhaps the most dodgiest part of the lap for cold tyres. But onto the back straight. So from Beeswax Racing perspective, that was a fantastic pit stop. Past both the Ferraris in the pits. And And I don't care how he gets done, so long as he gets done. Into the chicane. Ferrari not close enough to have a go. There's a little train there behind. Jacques and then Paul Martin and Gently Bentley. So Paul Martin and Duque have come back slightly, 15th and 16th. Going towards turn 1, the Ferrari is not close enough, so it looks like, from my perspective, I got away with that one and made it work. Rudy Geese still circulating in the lead, still not pitted. Scooby-Doo, again not pitted. 20 seconds behind Geese. Mihai, technically our leader on the road, and I think once the two ahead of him have taken their pit stop, is now going to have to fight off Message, I think, for the rest of the race. If they go through the hairpin, the gap less than half a second between the pair of them. It looks a lot less than that on track. Meanwhile, behind, Tom Griffiths now showing technically in 3rd place. So Kozierski must have had a bit of a mishap. I know somebody was complaining or observing they lost a lot of time in the pits by possibly missing their pit board and not parking in quite the right place. If you don't get your pit stop positioning as perfect as you can, the game simulates the pit crew having to put your car onto dollies and reposition it, and you can lose quite a lot of time in the pits that way. But Kozierski seems to be the big loser there in the pit stops. Now shown behind Cav Bud. And Lord Nem also losing out because he'll have pitted. Now he was right behind Bud, but now he's showing a gap of at least 2.7 seconds because he's got Kozierski between him and Bud. So not a great pit stop for Lord Nem. Whatever his strategy was there, it didn't quite pan out. Geese has finally pitted. But Mihai has got Mishij right on his tail. So there's going to be a lot of pressure here all the way to the end of the race with the Aston Martin. Fortunately for Scooby-Doo, we will have to discount him. He's not pitted yet, despite his 25-second lead. I don't think that with a 30-second mandatory time for your tyre change, he's definitely going to drop quite a way down the field when he finally does box. Through, is it to Spoon? Nope, I think it's the Degner 1 and 2, isn't it? Audi Aston Martin pushing hard there. He has to be very careful. Easy to go off on that corner. But once this all settles down, Mihai will be in the lead. Mishij will be in second. Tom Griffiths has somehow slid his way into 3rd place. Was hovering out behind Lord Nem for the longest time, and he's the big winner, one of the big winners from the pit stops. Motin in 5th. Cav Bud in 6th now, and he's had Lord Nem in his mirrors, replaced by Kozierski. So Lord Nem for Beeswax Racing in 8th. Slightly no man's land. He's 2.4 seconds behind Kozierski. But a good healthy 5.5 seconds clear of Rudy Geese. Rudy Geese having a very quiet Suzuka. Urban Tat from Urban Led Racing trying to close in, but a bit wide there for the Porsche. Not sure if that's going to help him catch Geese as they head up towards 130R. Urban Led Racing, part of the main competition for Beeswax Racing. Urban Led moved ahead of Beeswax in the Teams Championship, coming away from Barcelona, but the points difference was very small. So at the moment with Lord Nem ahead, and myself, Steve Bezic for Beeswax Racing, only 2 places behind Urban Tat, and Stefan Blay still struggling a little, shall we say, in 23rd place. He's only got Steel Co behind him now. The balance of points there should put Beeswax Racing back ahead in the Teams Championship. Fingers crossed. Carson was trying to... Oh, he's definitely made a mistake somewhere there, because Paul Martin sweeps right through on the Ferrari. So he was trying to catch myself. Meanwhile, he's been replaced by Schmijak right behind me. So we just missed something happening to Carson there. He's dropped a couple of places. A lot of action going on from 12th to 15th place. the S's. Trying to pull away from the Ferrari Schmijak. Paul Martin definitely ahead of Carson now. The computer's not quite caught up yet. Carson has to be careful about not pushing too hard to try and get these places back. He seems to keep just getting a little bit of bad luck and a little bit of grass or too much curb and slipping back 1 or 2 places. It's costing quite a bit in this race. Okay, just in the background there, trying to keep Biela behind him. Suzuka trying to get on the back of the Honda up front. Siege still trying to catch Mihai. Keep flitting around. Urbantat looked to have closed really close up to Geese and then slipped back a little bit again. Schmijak trying to get onto the back of Marcel for Beeswax Racing going through 130R. Looks too far away there to make an attack into the chicane. In fact, if anything, looked like the Audi may have got a good exit from Spoon. And that Ferrari looked like he went a bit deep there into the chicane. That may have cost him even more time. Oh yeah, look at Audi speeding away there. So yeah, I think the Ferrari driver may have got the chicane a little bit wrong there. Allowed the Audi to scamper away. Carson trying to find a way past Paul Martin. As they go through turn 1. Tries left and tries the right, though I'm not sure there's any way through on the S's. And as Paul Martin tries to defend from Carson, Duque is trying to defend from Biela right behind him. Very close gap between Morphy and Darras there, but I can't see the Audi anywhere in shot. I was just ahead of him, so Morphy may have got close but didn't get through. Gap now between Schmijak and the Beeswax Racing car over a second. Carson trying to get onto the back of Paul Martin, but Paul Martin closing right in on Schmijak as well. I think I recall looking into the timing screens and hoping that Schmijak, Martin, Carson and Duque all started fighting each other and allowed me to scamper off down the road. That will be working a little bit. Schmijak is 1 second is the gap to the Audi. Paul Martin keeps closing up and then dropping back a little bit. Carson really trying to get onto the back of the Lexus. Really closing in there on the back straight. Lexus doesn't seem to have good speed coming down the back straight unless you get a bad exit from Spoon. Not close enough to go through 130R and up towards the chicane. Can he do anything under braking? Looks to get perhaps a little bit closer. Paul Martin still under pressure. And Duque under pressure as well. Both gently Bentley drivers. Somebody pretty close behind them. Biela not close enough, I think, there for turn 1. Email out front. Mihai continues to hold off Meshij. Scooby-Doo continues his long stints at the front, but that gap he had to the leaders was over 20 seconds and now it's 18, so whatever his strategy, I'm not sure it's really working out with the life of his tyres. It looks like he's losing quite a bit of time now to the leaders behind him, so maybe he would be better at hitting and getting fresh rubber on, trying to preserve as much of a position as he might have made up. Goes into the chicane. Is he going to peel off this time and go for his pit stop? Yes, he does. Maybe he saw he was losing a bit of time as well and thought, this is it, I need to get into the pits. Being cautious. You really don't want to stop go. It's not worth the risk anymore. It used to be that you could carry quite a bit of speed over the pit line, but penalties now in ACC are pretty severe for speeding in the pit lane. Through 130R, Urbantat 0.8 of a second behind Geese. I don't think he's really been able to close that gap up too much. Gets close in the chicane. That's the natural concertina effect. Goes a bit too wide there, I think, on the exit. And if he'd have caught that curb like that, he'll have lost a bit of speed. And again, the Aston Martin has got quite a few car lengths, more than safe enough a gap going to turn 1. Oh, what happened there? We just came back on shot there. Looked like Paul Martin must have gone wide through 130R and opened the door for Carson, who nipped through. So Carson finally gets past the Gently Bentley. Paul Martin falls behind. Now he's got his teammate behind him. Duque still trying to hold off Beeler. Carson will need to really try and focus now. Get a bit of an opportunity there. And he'll want to try and close up on. But no, Schmijak's gone as well. Schmijak was behind me in 11th position. But now Schmijak all the way down in 19th. So we had a major incident there for Schmijak somewhere. He's fighting Scooby-Doo, is it? He must be Scooby-Doo, yep. He's come back out on track. So Schmijak gone. Carson, the gap between Carson and Beeswax Racing Audi is 5 seconds. That's a big distance to close. I don't think there's that many laps left. So Carson has had an up and down race, but eventually has got ahead of both the Gently Bentley Lexus. And the gap's really starting to open up a little bit now all the way down the race. Mihai still leading the BMW for Mashij. Keeps yo-yoing up to the back of his bumper. Doesn't seem to find any way through. But Mashij made a mistake and ended up on the grass. The same could happen to Mihai. But this now I think is turning into the closest battle on track. Just 0.5 of a second. There's the gap there. As he went through the last sector. Through turn 1. Tom Griffiths. Not too far behind him in the BMW, but it's far enough away that 2.5 seconds nearly. That's quite a gap really at this level. Oscar Motin in 4th place is possibly slightly out of contact now. It's 4-second gap. Kazurski, who was doing so well early on in the race, dropped down to 5th place. And Lord Nem, stuff has been happening that we've missed. Lord Nem now into 6th place. Ahead of Geese and Cav Bud. Cav Bud down in 8th. So another poor race really for Cav. He was up into 5th place at one point. He was definitely ahead of Nem. So he's not going great for Cav. And I think he's seeing his championship hopes possibly slipping away from him. There's still one round to go after this, but it's going to look pretty tough. And it's reaching the point where perhaps he might be counting on bad results for other people to give him that opportunity. Cab's got Urban Tat closing in on him. The gap just 0.5 of a second. So it's Nem, Geese, Bud and Urban Tat all pretty close to each other. And quite a big gap down to Steve Banks. And then another big gap down to myself for Beeswax Racing. And then another 5 seconds down to Carson in 12th. Paul Martin slowly slipping away from the back of the Ferrari. He's got his teammate right behind him. And right behind his teammate Duque, there's a little train falling with Beeler and Braun. Braun usually a bit further up the field. Oh, and poor old Blake. Drive through. He's pulled over. I'm not sure if he's just had enough for one evening. Blake really struggling at this track. And Steelcoat goes through at the back of the field, unfortunately. But yeah, looks like Blake may well have just had enough and has pulled over. Alice struggling a little in this race. 22nd. Blind Guy Murphy goes through the hairpin. 21st. Darras, who you don't normally does reasonably well at these races, but probably down in 20th. We saw Scooby-Doo earlier right out front for the longest time before his tyres, I think, eventually screamed enough. He's now got Schmijak right in front of him as he goes up to 130R. Schmijak was a lot further up, so clearly had an off of some sort. It was very wide there. That'll give Scooby-Doo an opportunity to close up, and he makes a big dive in towards the chicane. Gets in ahead of the Ferrari. I think he's going to make that one stick. Ferrari goes too deep on the exit from the chicane, and that is very easy then in the end for Scooby-Doo. He's already getting more than a few car lengths on that exit to Schmijak. But it is a long way down the field. But Scooby-Doo up to 18th. Give him a chance to take something from this race. But the gap now to Field Racing Seb ahead is 7.8 seconds. And I'm not sure there's quite enough of this race left to close down such a big gap. Towards the battle in the middle of the field with Martin, Duque, Bieler and Braun. Braun trying to get close enough to have a sniff at Bieler as they go through Degner 1. And look at the overspeed that the McLaren got there on the Audi. Wasn't enough. Maybe went a bit too wide there on the exit of Degner 2 as they go under the bridge up towards the hairpin. Through the hairpin they go. Bieler trying to get close enough to the Lexus, but I'm not sure that's going to work out for him. Still too far back. If they head up towards Spoon. Carson trying to scamper away up ahead, although it looks like Paul Martin is keeping him honest and closing up. Heading up to 130R, and that Ferrari looks to be 1 or 2 car lengths clear of the Lexus. Computer showing Cav Bud really close to Geese. There he is just ahead of him. Lord Nem trying to fend them all off. Urban Tap falling back a little bit on these three. Through the S's. Coming out the final corner to go up towards Degner 1. Suzuka, quite a difficult track to pass on. Degner 2 and under the bridge. Out front, Mihai's lead really, I think he's may have finally snapped the elastic a little on Mashij. The gap now 1.3 seconds. And Mashij for the longest time was under a second, well under a second behind the Aston Martin, but now that gap's starting to open up. Not many laps left now. Nem goes very, very wide there. Geese, I think, sniffed a bit of an opportunity. Are they coming out of Spoon? I think they are. Well, can the Aston Martin get a run on the Lexus going up to 130R? He's trying to get closer. He'd be very, very brave indeed to try and go up the inside of 130R. And he's not brave enough and not close enough. Through the exit. Coming up towards the chicane again. Can he get the Lexus on the braking? Nem's got a bit defensive there. He's a bit too far over to the right, really, to the ideal line. So the Aston has closed up even more on the back of the Lexus. Will it be enough to have a go into turn 1? He's really trying to get a run on him. I don't think he's quite got the toe. We're over the start-finish line. There's not that much time left until turn 1. And I don't think he's going to get alongside. He closes right in. But by that point, there's really no way through. Through turn 1 and into the S's, but this has got to be the best opportunity Geese has had. He's on the wrong side, really. He's on the outside for the first part of the S's. And the Lexus looks to have defended that first corner and got enough of a gap now. They'll stay ahead all the way through the S's and through Degner 1 and 2. Geese's best chance is to focus on getting a very good exit from Degner 2. Trying to have a go into the hairpin. Trying to harass the Lexus offline going into Degner 1. He's right on the bumper. But he's not got Degner 2 right. You can see him go through a little bit slower than the Lexus as they go up towards the hairpin. There's good enough gap there for Lord Nem to get through safely this time. But Geese must be sensing a bit of an opportunity now. He's all over the back of the Lexus. Meanwhile, Cav Bud behind has gone back another place. He's behind Urban Tat now, so it's going from bad to worse for Cav Bud. No change out front for Mihai and Mashij. But back through Spoon again. And the Aston Martin trying to get a bit of speed there in the middle of the corner, but it cost him at the apex. And the Lexus went through quicker and got a faster exit, but will the Aston Martin be able to get another run? It does look to be closing in as they head up towards 130R. Lord Nem decides to go and cut the grass a little bit because, you know, a bit of gardening is all what we need to do in the middle of a race. Goes a little bit wide on 130R, but he's okay. Goes defensive again into the chicane. And that really gave Geese an opportunity last time round, going into turn 1. Exit from the chicane. Oh, and Lord Nem really loses the back of the car. This is an excellent opportunity for Geese. He's up the inside. He's on the best side already for turn 1. He's about 3/4 of a length up. Can the Lexus outbrake him into turn 1? Getting really close. They're alongside, but Geese has got that corner. And they're into the S's, and the Aston Martin is ahead, and that position will be Geese's now. So, Lord Nem presenting Beeswax Racing going backwards, keeping our standards high. Still, gives me an opportunity to say I was one place closer to him at the finish. Geese clearly away there, I think. I don't know if Nem's got a response. For at least 2 laps on the trot there, Geese was right on the back of the Lexus, so it's going to be tough for Nem to get back. He is able to take Degner 2 better than the Aston Martin, though. We did see that from when Geese was trying to get past him. But he can keep in contact through the hairpin and carry the speed up towards Spoon. It'll give him an opportunity to tail him all the way through into the chicane again. That's how long it takes to try and set up a pass at Suzuka. You're really at it from the hairpin all the way through into the final chicane and turn 1. Paul Martin still unable to find a way past Carson. He has closed up. Gap behind Martin to his teammate is now over 2 seconds, but Duque is trying to fend off both Bieler and Braun. Lord Nem following the Aston Martin through 130R. Needs perhaps to try and get a bit closer going into the chicane. What made it work for Geese was he was managing to get the Lexus offline going into the chicane, which meant he couldn't get quite as good a drive through the chicane and quite a good an exit. Once he'd done that, he gave him a speed advantage on the start finish straight down into turn 1. Lord Nem looks to be dropping a bit too far back there. Still close, but not close enough. Meanwhile, Steve Banks now is closing on Cav Bud. So he's just going backwards in this race, so Cav Bud really seeing his championship, I think, drive away from him at the moment. Motin, Geese and Mishij all ahead of him in the championship, I think. No, Motin was just behind him going into this round. Cav was in 3rd place, but Oscar Motin is a long way ahead of him, so that 3rd place position must be under threat now if the results finish as everybody is currently positioned. But he's really under some pressure from Banks. Even Beeswax Racing starting to close in on the back of these two. Yeah, was a lot more than it used to be. It's only 2.5 seconds now. So good driving there from myself, if I do say so myself. The gap to Carson behind has opened up to 6 seconds. And I've closed right in on Bud and Banks. But the gap ahead of Bud to Urbantat in 8th is 13 seconds. So the leader's really in a very separate race. Knee-high out front. Now got a comfortable buffer of 1.8 seconds over Message. I think Message's head may have dropped, and he realises perhaps not going to get this one done. And over the start-finish line comes Mihai. Reaching that point now where I keep looking out for the fireworks because there's nothing in the replay to tell you when the race is over. Lord Nem, I think, has either tried too hard or has realised he's not going to do it, but he's dropped 1.5 seconds behind Geese. Geese solid in that 6th place now. Nem needs to look over his shoulder and make sure that Urbantat in the Porsche does not catch him. Bud and Banks and Beeswax Racing just behind them. The gap now for myself to these two, it's only 1.4 seconds, so I think Cav Bud is really holding off Steve Banks here. Through they go to do another lap. Banks has a little look up the inside, but it's not close enough to the Honda. Rev Sport International driver Cav Bud ahead of Banks. Banks doesn't have a team. And then myself, Steve Bezic for Beeswax Racing in 11th, right behind them. Into Degner 1 they go. Meanwhile, Mihai is coming down the back straight. Through Degner 2 and under the bridge. He's going to keep it together under the bridge. That's where a lot of people seem to slide. Oh, he's having a look. He's left and look to the right. Trying to make a dive into the chicane, into the hairpin. Caught a bit of a grass. Cav Bud's gone really wide there, but that will give him better drive out of the hairpin. And the McLaren is side by side, but it's not enough. Now he's trying the outside, coming up towards Spoon. And there's 3 wide almost going into Spoon. Meanwhile, out front, the fireworks are going. Mihai takes victory. Meshikachi takes second, and Tom Griffiths will be over the line in third. But it's the battle between Bud, Banks, and Beeswax coming up to the final few corners. Is anybody going to make a really desperate lunge? Through 130R they go. Cav taking a very defensive line, no doubt, into the chicane. Trying to cover off all angles, and I don't think there's enough time now. It's the last couple of corners. And out of the final corner, Cav Bud stays just ahead of the McLaren, which stays just ahead of Beeswax Racing. And it's over the line for the finish. Well, that ends round 6 at Suzuka. Only one more round to go at the Nürburgring. So let's have a look at the official race results from Suzuka. Tudor Mihai came across the line in first place, taking away maximum points. Mashij Chi for visually impaired racing, another second place means he'll be consolidating his lead on the Drivers' Championship. Tom Griffiths came in third place. Oscar Motin finished in 4th. Radomir Kojerski was 5th. Rudigies was 6th, so I don't know how that's going to do for his Drivers' Championship position. Lord Nem, good result for Beeswax Racing in 7th. Nico Urbantant for Urban Led Racing, he was 8th. Cav Bud, not a great result for Cav again. Rev Sport International driver came in 9th place, and Steve Banks finished in 10th. Of the other drivers in the teams, myself, Steve Bezic, I managed to finish in 11th, again, not a bad result. Simon Carson was 12th. Paul Martin was in 13th position. Moving further down the field, Manuel Duque, the other Gently Bentley and the Lexus driver, was right behind his teammate in 14th. Daniel Vallis for Riders on the Storm finished 21st. Blind Guy Morphy for Visually Impaired Racing, he finished 22nd. Steel Cove, the other Riders on the Storm driver, he was 23rd. And Stefan Blay from Urban Led Racing, having won the last time out, had a really difficult time at Suzuka, he finished in 24th place. Moving on to see where we are with the Drivers' Championship, Ashish Chief for Visually Impaired Racing consolidates his lead. Doesn't move too far away though. He's only got a 40-point lead over Rudy Geese, who's in 2nd. Oscar Motin moves up into 3rd place. He's only 10 points adrift of Rudy. But it was Cav Bud who was a big loser today. That 9th place finish means he's dropped back one more place into 4th. And he's slowly starting to lose touch with the leaders. He's going to need a very good result at the final round of the Nürburgring to get back in it. Further down the table, outside the top 4, Steve Banks moves ahead of Manuel Duque, but not by much. Manuel Duque from Gently Bentley and Lexus is now 6th. Tom Griffiths stays where he's in 7th. Tudor Mihai moves up a couple of places to 8th. George Darash stays where he's in 9th. And Stefan Blay from Urban Led Racing, he slips back down into 10th. Looking at the Teams Championship, no movement at the top of the table. Visually Impaired Racing hold on to that lead. Blind Guy Morphy and Masish Chi. Rev Sport International, Cav Bud and Cameron Gold are now 78 points behind the VIR team. Gently Bentley and Lexus, they stay in position in 3rd, but that gap to Rev Sport International, I think it's slowly starting to open up a little. It's on an 82-point gap now. Beeswax Racing moved back over Urban Led Racing, but the ability to catch Gently Bentley looks remote. There's an 84-point gap there between those two. Urban Led could come back at Beeswax though. Stefan Blair and Nico Urban Tat are only 20 points behind. Unfortunately for riders on the Storm, Daniel Weiss and Steel Co. are now 183 points adrift at the bottom of the table, and it seems that that's where they may well finish the season. So that's it for round 6 at Suzuka. Only one more round to go. How's the Drivers and Teams Championship gonna finish up for the end of season 12? We'll see you at the next fully commentated race, which will be out soon. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you later. Cheerio.